Good to have you. We're going to do some more Unleashed stuff today. I'm going to include a couple update items, notes, things, kind of things. So tomorrow on YouTube, Brian Stewart's going to be doing the Agnostics Protocol training. If you get a chance to join it. The guy has a gift, and I can't even begin to explain how impressive that gift really is. So if you can do it, hop on there, say hi. It's great content. So it covers all routing and switching protocols. He talks about a lot of things, and he explains it in a way. He makes me look like a fool is what he does. So anyways, next week we'll be back doing this, the following week as well. And then I think we're probably going to take a 2-week break because it's going to be Christmas. A lot of people are taking time off, hopefully getting some sanity back in their lives, maybe some family time, things like that. So I won't be doing live streams for the last 2 weeks in December through the new year, but after the new year, we'll start them back up, and that'll allow me to get some stuff going as well. So everything that I needed to kind of start happening and coming into order to do a lot of this stuff is now falling into place. Finally, knock on wood before I screw that up. I think next week we'll do some Bonjour gateway stuff, because with Apple TVs and things like that, that stuff becomes a requirement. You need to be able to do some of that stuff. And at least if you have a recorded example of it, of something I can show you and put up, then I think it's really good to have. Hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Didn't eat too much. Apparently I made a joke yesterday about the live stream saying hopefully the tryptophan wore off, and apparently that one came back to bite me. So we started that one a little late, but it's out on YouTube as well. It was some Smart Zone stuff just with hotspots. But yeah, that stuff will start to ramp up as well. Start doing some Radius stuff with Smart Zone next week if you're interested in that. So cool. I had a couple of folks follow when I first started. Man Hunlo, V Canella, Xenolifts. I really appreciate the follow, so thank you. We're trying to keep a lot of content out for you and keep stuff going and show you some different things that you can do. Today I have notes. You're all in trouble. I have notes. So we're gonna do some remote logging, and I know it's kind of come up at different times where you might see rogue APs screaming on if you're looking at AP logs. And it's pretty common. It happens. It's not necessarily cause for concern. Malicious rogue APs are a cause for concern. So if you see some of that stuff, then you know you probably have a problem, and you might need to start filtering some of that stuff out if you can. What a malicious rogue AP is it's an AP that basically acts like a clone of yourself. So it's trying to spoof your own wireless LAN network. It might have the same wireless LAN name but no password, and they try to get clients to join that, and then, you know, phishing attempts, hacking attempts, stealing information, things like that. Rogue access points, if you see them, it's really not anything to be concerned with. It's the Unleashed network detecting access points that are out there that are not part of the Unleashed network, whether it be in a mesh, whether it be standalone, whatever it might be. When it does its background channel scanning, it does that, and it just finds these other access points that are out there and says, oh, you're an access point, but you don't belong to me, so I'm just going to be aware of you. And the reason it does that is as it channel scans, it wants to make sure that it knows what else is out there so that it can use the appropriate channels for your own wireless LAN network. So it does that a lot, and you'll see it a lot, but it's a mechanism that's built in. It's there on purpose. It's nothing malicious at all, unless it says malicious behind it. Then you know you might have something going on. And it could be, I don't know how often this happens, but with the many access points that are out there today, I'm sure that there are common WLAN names, and sometimes you might find those. So you just have to kind of adjust to that accordingly if you do see them. Okay? So yeah, we're gonna do some remote syslog stuff, and I actually have a Linux box that I'm gonna send this logging to. I'm gonna send Unleashed logs to it. And then the other thing I wanted to go through is I wanted to show you how to do client rate limiting. And I want to do that because I know that everybody is in a situation where you're stuck at home, your kids are stuck at home, your spouses are stuck at home, your parents are stuck at home, and there's a lot of traffic on your network. And the way that I comically look at it is you pay the bill, so you get all the bandwidth. But I'm going to show you a way to do it that doesn't make you sound like a jerk, for one. And also allows you to kind of provide everybody with the bandwidth that they need, but also leave enough to where if you do need to do something, you know, data intensive during the day, you need to download large files, you don't need it to take forever, you can do that. So I'm going to give these clients enough bandwidth, even if you have a small internet pipes, 200 megabit per second, 300, 400, whatever you have. We're going to limit that down and just make sure that, you know, it's kind of allocated correctly, because if your house is anything like mine and you look at traffic graphs for what's going on in your network, your kids are probably stressing that internet pipe out quite a bit. And I've had conversations with my neighbor too, and he's even said like he's neared his data cap before. So, you know, so many things are done that way now. We really have to pay attention to it, but you can drill this stuff down and make sure that they're not exceeding those thresholds and those limits. And then it just saves you more bandwidth for other things that you might be trying to do. And the way we're going to build it is, I'm not going to build it to where if you're trying to stream and watch Netflix or YouTube or whatever video streaming you're doing, it's still going to work. It's not going to buffer. It's not going to slow everything down. It's not going to make it unusable. It's just going to allocate those bandwidth lanes to each individual client. Okay. And then the other thing I was going to show you how to do some user roles. So if, say, you aren't at home and maybe you want your kids or your spouse or somebody to be able to at least log into the Unleashed network and look and see what's going on, but not be able to make any changes, you can create those roles as well. So we'll do that. We'll see how it goes. So far so good. All my cameras are working, so you're stuck looking at me. But let's do the remote syslogging piece first. So one thing to keep in mind, I don't have a diagram here, but I do have a Linux box running on my own network. And I know that a lot of folks at home, just from some of the past live streams, you know, a lot of folks do have this stuff in their house. So I'll give you some tools that you can use that'll allow you to do this. It's super simple. And I mean, I found a guide online. I just Googled it to how to quickly get up our syslog running so you can send logging to it. And I was trying to pipe it out to Graylog, but I tried to do it this morning and I had too many other distractions. Man, my mom was an English major. She would have my, you know what. So I didn't get it fully built up yet. And Graylog does require a little bit of tweaking. And I don't even think the VM I have spun up for it is really appropriate for Elasticsearch, but we'll get that going. If not, I'll just put Log Analyzer on there. We'll have a nice fancy little UI. Go and look at logs, things like that. So, but for this, once you have your logging server built, which is this guy right here, it's just a logging server. I've ran this command here. I'm root on the box, but I ran that command. Any network device that I have or server or whatever that I point its logging to this guy, it's all going to land in this file. You can make this as complex as you want. You can make it as simple as you want. You can really do a lot of things. But this is basically going to just spit out any logging that hits the Linux box itself, anything that's going on internally with it. And then we're also going to point our Unleashed logs at it so it starts to log that stuff out. So we'll be able to see all those logs hit here. And then, you know, there's ways you can go in and manage and parse this. If it's of interest, throw it in chat. I'll go through and do it next week, and we'll build out something like Log Analyzer. It's free. It's freeware. You can spin it up. It works. I use it in the other lab that I have. It's actually really great. But it just gives you a graphical view. If you're not that great with Linux, that might be a better option, is to kind of go through and use that as a how-to guide on to how to do all of that. And then you can have this stuff spun up and you're good to go. But to do it, you basically go to Admin and Services. And you look at System Info right here. We're going to scroll to the bottom. So the nice thing is, if you're not, well, I'll tell you this. If you're running Unleashed version 200.7 or earlier, anything below that, this feature isn't there. It was added in 200.8. So in 200.8, you can go on down to this piece and Remote Syslog, enable it, and then you can point it to your server. And that's my server. And I want all syslog, everything. Go, send it out there. That's what we want. And then we apply it. And I'll process it, save it, and then there you go. This is it, 192, 168, 128.208. And it'll show you all of the logs that are coming out of my Unleashed network are going to show up here. So to see this, you have to download these logs in Unleashed, and it makes it a little bit more of a challenge to find something on the fly. This way you have the logs, and if you understand grep commands and grep pipe include, things like that, you can grab all of this any way you want, or grep asterisks. Sorry, I'm mixing ICX and Linux, but you can go through and find all of this stuff. So all of this stuff is here, right? 95.44, old state disconnected. It's approved at once. ICX username. yeah, I mean, this, you can have my stuff. It's not hidden. So all of that stuff is here. I don't use scary passwords for this stuff because I know you guys are going to see them. Okay, but it'll send it, so you get it. So it's actually really slick. I also have the ICX set up to send logs too. So just as an example, if I hit config T and then end, as soon as I do that, whoops, minimize. This guy will say security running config was potentially changed. That's the ICX. So one thing you can do in Linux is if I go in and I do, oops, I do not use VI. I can go down here and do this. Oops, I don't want to do that. Now if I pull that again, it should translate that IP address to... Nope, it didn't do it yet. I'd probably have to restart Syslog to do it, but or just the daemon. But you can create hosts in there so that it will translate IP addresses to names as well. And actually, that's a really good point. I don't know if there's a way to give this thing... Yeah, it has a system name. It just must not send that naturally. So, don't know. Oh well. But it's there. So you can send them out that way. It's really super easy. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so rate limiting. This is, it's a little bit more of a challenge. Also, I will warn you of this. Access points are very, very chatty. So they will send a ton of information to your Syslog server. So one thing you might want to consider is looking at the options that you have. You're going to want to go in and maybe drill that down a little bit. You could do it on client connection logs only, which is probably the best thing that you could do, because you want to make sure that when your clients are connecting, you can kind of see logging that's in there. If you do anything else beyond that, it's gonna overload this thing, and you're gonna end up with hard drives that are full. I just talked to a friend of mine about it, and he had that issue. His hard drive was full because he had a logging server that he set up and was tinkering with, and then forgot about it, and it wouldn't boot. So it filled the drive up, things like that. So this thing, you can at least see client connection status. You know, it'll sit there and show you that information as it goes through. But that's probably a better way to do it instead of everything. If you need everything, everything is still stored within the logs on the access point. And it just rotates those out. So the logs are there. You have those. So if you do need something in terms of support, or you do need to go in and dig with it a little bit more, you can go in and download your logs and review them. But with this, you're just sending specific things to your remote server, so you don't fill up the drive and things like that. Okay, pretty simple stuff, huh? Okay, so rate limiting can be done in a multitude of ways, and it kind of depends on what your use case is. So a good use case I could think of is we have multiple WLANs here, right? We have our kids network, we have our main network, and then we have a guest network that we created. You know, guest networks, I did that just kind of as an example. If you didn't want to give out your actual network name password, you know, your neighbors start attaching to your Wi-Fi instead of theirs, things like that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in some cases. So, but something to be aware of, right? So this one, I'm just going to delete it real quick. So looking at this, I would personally probably do this. I have everything that our kids use is separated onto the kids' Wi-Fi network. Everything we use is on a separate one, and then I have a separate one built for IoT devices. So things like my security system, Alexa, you know, anything like that is in its own IoT WLAN, and then I have it firewalled off so it can't see anything internal. And I do that with pfSense. I talked about that not last week, the week before. Great tool, very easy to use, tons of documentation on it, very powerful. If you do have something like the Intel NUC that we physically built last week, you can run it on there. It's a piece of cake. If you want the hardware appliance, you can get them on Amazon. So. And I think I can say Amazon on this because Amazon owns Twitch. So let's look at this. The kids network is probably where I would look at doing this. And the reason I say that is, you know, the jerk version that I gave of it was you pay the bill. So you get all the bandwidth you want. But more importantly, you may be doing stuff during the day that's requiring more bandwidth intensity than they are. I mean, if they're on WebEx meetings, Zoom meetings, whatever they're doing for schooling, that doesn't require a lot. Remember, when we talk about bandwidth tests, I've seen some stuff in the forums recently, and I've talked about this before, and I think it's important to talk about maybe even every time for different audiences. 4K video requires 25 megabits per second, period. Okay, if you have a 400 megabit per second or 450 megabit per second internet bandwidth pipe, so your provider, whether it be DSL or cable, if they tell you that's what it is, and you can get that on a wired connection, great. If you get 300 megabits per second on a wireless network doing that, even better, because that's where it should be. You would need to be in a completely pristine RF-free environment where you're the only access point for miles. Then you can push on the R510s that most people have in their houses. I think the max you can pull on those in pristine, just super clean environments, no other APs, no other RF, nothing, is about 867 megabits per second. When you start adding your neighborhood and different access points, I mean, I have 3 access points in this room alone. 2 of them are 4x4, meaning they're 4x4 antennas. And then this one, which is a 2x2, this is the dirtiest room on the planet probably in terms of RF, because there's just too much of it. So if you're seeing speeds of 300 megabit per second over Wi-Fi, it doesn't mean anything's wrong. You're never going to get what the internet provider has told you they're selling you. You're not going to get that, especially with something like a cable modem, because that's a shared medium. Wi-Fi is a shared medium, and it's all over the air. So you'll see a reduction in those speeds, and that's not a bad thing. It should not cause any concern for alarm. Now, if you're looking at it and you're sitting on your Wi-Fi network and you get 100 megabits per second, then yeah, I might be a little upset with that, because that's probably a little too slow. Might have something going on in there. Some of the BSS min rate stuff we talked about, and roaming, things like that. That's some things that you should probably look at and go on and at least try to tweak that stuff to make it function better. And a lot of that stuff will clear it up. But that's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. And it's the same piece of advice I give everybody. You know, you're not going to get amazing over-the-top upload-download speeds via Wi-Fi because it's Wi-Fi. And it's not the only access point on the block, okay? So just keep that in mind. I mean, a good way to look at this is when you open up a tablet, a smartphone, your laptop, whatever, and you pull up and you want to see all your wireless networks that exist out there, you don't see just yours. You see yours and probably 3 or 4 of your neighbors. They're all there. So that's RF that's pouring into your house that now your access point has to sit down, and when it does its channel roaming and looks at what's on all these channels, it says, all right, what's the cleanest one that I can use where I can get a clean stream from me to the client? So just keep that in mind. It's good to have in your back pocket and give you a little bit better understanding of it. But always remember, 4K video, which is the most, bandwidth intensive video streaming out there, is 25 megabits per second. So you should be good. So tying into that, the reason why I would look at this and say, if I'm going to limit bandwidth somewhere on a WLAN, I'll probably do it on my kids, just because they might be trying to do 15 things at once and downloading things, and you're like, oh my gosh, you can't do anything. So we're going to ratchet them down, and I'll show you other ways you can do it too for specific client types. Okay. So you just highlight the WLAN and then you go to edit. And once you're in here, you go to advanced options. And here, was it under radio? Nope. It's under access control. Okay. So first of all, call admission control. You don't need to worry about this, especially in a home environment. This is more quality of service type stuff. And QoS does not exist on the internet. So you can't guarantee throughput from one device to another over the internet. It doesn't work unless you're running over MPLS or anything that you own and manage that. So don't worry about it. This is probably not going to be something super beneficial to you and within a home environment, unless one of our amazing support engineers tells you to turn it on. You're a special use case, so keep that in mind. Don't mess with it. Now, per station, uplink, and downlink. This is what I want to focus on. Per station means per client. So this guy right here that's buzzing at me. I want to make sure that each of my clients that attaches to this is only getting X amount of bandwidth. And kind of went through, and I didn't do the math. I talked to a buddy of mine and I said, hey, what do you think here? Because his internet pipe at home is smaller and his family is the same size as mine. And when we kind of talked through it, I said, look, you have to understand that the audience that's going to be consuming this information, they're all going to sit there and look at it and say, well, my internet pipe is 200 meg, mine is 450, mine's gig. I have all these different numbers to work with. Well, who cares? Throw that out. Doesn't matter what your pipe out is. This is, I mean, you're going to be 200 megabit plus. I think the lowest rate that the provider will give you is 200 megabit per second, and that's download. So for per station uplink, now remember, unless your kids are uploading very large school projects into the school's cloud infrastructure, I guess we'll call it, you don't need a lot of upload. Most of what we do is download. I mean, if you're watching YouTube or Netflix or Prime, whatever you're doing, or Twitch like now, this is download. For me, mine is an upload. So I'm uploading more traffic right now than I'm downloading. But that's if you're into streaming or your kids are into streaming. You might want to adjust that number a little bit, but it doesn't really take a whole lot. I mean, right now, kilobits per second, I'm like 4,700. So I'm like 4.5 meg per second up. That's it. That's pretty low. So for uplink, we're going to run it and we'll just say, you know what? Let's give them 8 megabit per second. Okay. They can stream safely, upload their homework, limits it, but it doesn't kill it. Okay. And then downlink, let's make it 30. Okay. That way, if I'm streaming anything, it's not going to slow down. It's not going to go, that kind of thing, right? And then another thing I'm going to do is I actually need to, I don't know. Done, just like that, okay? And I'm going to disable this policy because I want to make sure that Netflix doesn't buffer on me when I do this. Okay, Kids 2020 is the password. So I'm going to attach my client to that, and then we'll just do a speed test and see how it's working. Okay, so that's it. It's that easy. Just do that math, kind of figure it out. 8, 30, it's pretty safe. You can get everything done there that you need to. Piece of cake, throw it in there, okay? All right, so with that, I didn't test this prior, so if this doesn't work, I'm going to look like a giant buffoon, but we're going to try it. And of course, my phone decides all on its own that it doesn't want to show up. Okay. First things first, we're going to grab onto the kids network. I'm going to go in here and do kids. And it was kids 20. Now, this is the thing when you rate limit this, okay? The thing you have to keep in mind. Rate limiting is only from the client itself, my phone, to the access point. It is not going to rate limit it beyond that. So whatever that access point has and it goes through that little cable to the ICX, it's not limiting it there. It's limiting it over the air from my client, my phone, to the access point. And I don't really recommend trying to do it any other way than that. It's not going to affect the ICX. I mean, the ICX, if it has to buffer packets out, it will, but it's going to slow that stuff down on its own anyways. So, do I have the speed test on here? I do. I don't know if this is going to work. No, let's just do this. What is it? Speed test. That maybe. Go. That's our download. So it's downloading right now at exactly what we set it at. I mean, it's a little bit lower. Give up some for latency and jitter. I mean, 28.5, 28.2. That's pretty good for what we just did, right? And it keeps us in that threshold where we need to be. Test again, I guess. I don't know this thing very well. Oh, download. I don't want download, I want upload. I don't use this thing. I just pulled it up because I knew it existed. That's the funny thing. So I looked for one thing. I looked for buffer bloat, which is a pfSense thing that a buddy of mine was talking to me about. And I looked at that and I didn't have any. But I don't run speed tests really. I mean, I don't need to, I guess. I wish this would let me test the upload, but it's not going to. Maybe we can download it. I don't even know my password for this thing. Oh, Face ID. I do know my password. I'm wearing it. So we can try this download and see if it does anything else in terms of upload, just so we can see that that's actually working. Now, if I turn that off and I do a download test, it would probably adjust greatly, right? I should have done it beforehand, but you get the point. Not while I'm using it. Whatever. Go. Oh, this will test the upload. Okay, good. Yep, there's the upload. So you can tell that access point just said, whoa, slow down, my friend. You're not going to go that fast. So there you go. So you can do that. Now, that's one way to do it. There's another way we can do it as well. And that way would be by going back down here. And we can do it through policies. Okay, in policies, you can do this and you can decide, man, something's chewing up all my bandwidth, and you start to take a look at it and you realize it's the Xbox or it's whatever, right? Something is taking over it. I'm using Xbox because it's a really easy example to use here. But you can do it through these policies as well. Oh, not this one. Device policy. You can do it here. Okay, so if I turn this off and I say, no, you're disabled. You're disabled. I'm going to leave the WLAN alone. All the clients that attach to the WLAN, I don't care. Maybe you do have gig internet at home and you don't care, but you have one device type that's doing it. Let's create a device policy for it. So we'll just go in and say gaming slow down. Okay. And the default action, if no rule is matched, is deny all by default. Okay. So order one, we'll say consoles slow. And then the OS vendor, excuse me, we'll call this gaming. Now, gaming here in terms of this is known ports that consoles are using to connect to their services, okay? It's already known. If you want, you can create policies elsewhere and go through and look, and you can see what's listed in here. It'll be Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, things like that. They're in there, okay? You can sit here and say allow it, but you can say per station uplink. You can do the same thing. We'll do 8 megasecond. Per station downlink, we'll do 30. You can assign a VLAN if you want, and then you save it. Okay. And then when I go in here, gaming slowdown, that device policy is now attached to the device, to those device types. So my phone will no longer be affected by this. It doesn't care. It's like, oh, cool. I can do whatever I want. I'll run that speed test again. So that's the nice thing. You can do it per devices. You can go in and edit this if you need to. Edit. There it is. So here, OS vendor, right? Windows, Android, Apple iOS, BlackBerry. Okay. Quick show of hands. Who has a BlackBerry? Somebody please tell me. Mac OS, Chrome OS, Linux, VoIP, gaming, printers. So those are already there and defined. You can define this stuff a little bit further out if you need to and some device policy stuff, but you would have to go in here to admin and services. Is it under? Nope. Services. Application and recognition control. I don't think I have this turned on yet. And then you can do application policies, which we did block Netflix. You can get more granular with this here as well. So you can go in and if you look at application type, system defined. I don't know if it's, you can select different games if you want. You can also limit some of this stuff too. So if you see way too much Xbox Live traffic, I wonder if Fortnite is listed in here. It pains me to know what that is. Fortnite is listed in there. You could deny this stuff too. Now, you can't do it on a schedule. So the way you can schedule your WLANs to turn on and off, I'm not aware of a way that you can schedule this to say, okay, internet can stay on for all night long. I just want to limit these applications after a certain time period at night. I don't believe that functionality is there right now. If it is, it's hidden and I haven't found it. And I think I've clicked on just about every button within Unleashed. So my advice then is you have two options, especially at home. You can turn your WLAN off at night, which is great for tablets. It's great for laptops. It's great for consoles. It's terrible for phones because your phone is just going to drop the Wi-Fi and jump onto the LTE network. And then if you have data limits there, you run the risk of running over your data limit. The other option is you can use a firewall, and you can put time-based firewall rules in that will basically just slow that traffic down to nothing, and then it becomes almost unusable. Now, kids are smart these days. They may just turn the Wi-Fi off when that happens or figure out what you're up to, but you wouldn't be called a parent if you didn't troll them once in a while. So that's one thing to look at. It's a way to do it. You know, just some options that are there. If you need. Okay. All right. Last thing I'm going to show you is some user stuff. So in users, you have users and roles. So you can create as many users as you want for whatever you want. If you want, you know, guest users that have to authenticate, your friends come over, you want to pick on them and make them authenticate, you can. But you can create these roles. So when you create a role, we'll call it read only. And this is going to allow you to do two things. It'll either give you access to all your WLANs, or you can specify. You can allow guest pass generation, and you can allow unleashed administration. Now, if we allow the administration, we're just going to allow them to monitor it. Okay. So that way, if you're at work, if you're traveling, if you're doing whatever, and I'm sure your phones ring as many times as mine when somebody calls you up and says, hey, the internet's not working. And I'm like, what? It doesn't make any sense. I'm like, okay, hold on. And then they can log in and look and see that everything's up, it's online. Might be a problem with the client, might be a problem with the application they're connecting to. I mean, common troubleshooting stuff. But you can give them monitoring access. So you create that role. And then under users, you can just create a user and say, all right, we'll make you Matt monitor. Then under role, you can come down here and say, all right, read only. That's all you get. Okay, fine. And then when you go back, oh, I need to log out of this. Okay, go to admin and services. This stuff should show. Your privilege is limited. So it doesn't change the UI at all. They can try to click on anything they want. It's probably going to tell them, sorry, no soup for you. So you get that flexibility in there, which is really nice because even through the mobile app, you can do that. For me, I just set up an admin username and password, put the application on my wife's phone, showed her how to turn Wi-Fi networks on and off. Done. Piece of cake. So that's how that works. It's pretty simple. We're going to get into next week. The main thing is I have a Apple TV that is sitting in a box somewhere. I couldn't even tell you how old it is, but I know Apple TVs come up a lot. I also know Sonos comes up a lot. So next week I want to go through and do some Bonjour Gateway stuff on the access point because you're going to have to do some of this stuff with the Apple TVs, things like that. Also, there's some other things that we have to do with Sonos. So I want to be able to get all that stuff in hand so that we can do it, make sure this stuff is all running flawlessly for you at home, and then just go through and you're good to go and done. So yeah, that's it. There was nothing else I was really going to go through. Anybody have any questions before we buzz out of here? Again, don't forget ruckuslive@comscope.com. That's how you can send emails. We do appreciate those because if there's stuff that you want to see done on a live stream, do it. Send it to us. We will absolutely put it in there. If you're not familiar with the forums, there is I think that's a command. There is a Ruckus at Home section on the forums, and it's actually quite active. There's a lot of great content on there. There's people asking questions. It's not only Ruckus employees that are responding, it's also other homeowners out there. they're responding with what they're seeing or what they're doing to kind of mitigate some of this stuff. So it's been really cool to see. Great community, great efforts by everybody. It's appreciated. So that's it. We'll be here again next week, same time. Looking forward to it. See you then.